Hey everyone, welcome back to Legacy Shinobi. Today's story explores, what if Naruto went to the RWBY universe and got a harem? Before we dive in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get started. Raven ran. She ran and ran and ran into the night, clutching a warm bundle tight to her chest. She fled from the burning ruin of her tribe as she'd never fled from anything before. Bare feet slapped against the muddy ground as rain sluiced down from above, soaking her to the bone. Clothes in tatters, right arm a bloody mess, heart hammering in her chest like a frantic colt, still she ran on. She didn't look back, she mustn't look back, for to do so was to be caught, and if they caught her in her current state she was finished. That would be the end of her. The end of everything. So she ran on. Across forest and field, over log and bramble. Until her legs screamed, her lungs burned, her eyes were afire, until everything ached. Yet she did not stop. She didn't dare. After her. A crazed voice called out into the gloom. For the glory of our goddess. Red eyes flashed with fire, smoldering with faint embers of former glory. She reached for her blade, only for her fingers to close around empty air. Omen was gone, left behind in camp, a twisted shattered mess. She had no weapon beyond her own two hands. Nothing to rely on beyond her own strength. Just as it had always been. Damn him. Damn this poison. Damn them all to hell. As she'd been at full strength she'd smite them all. It would have been a trifle to kill that lunatic, scour him from the earth, and all of the Grimm with him. But she wasn't at her peak, was she? The enemy had been clever, their ambush well timed when she was most vulnerable above all. Now her aura was gone, her power nearly depleted, her very life slipping away. An angry Ursa leaped at her from the storm, jaws gaping wide for a debilitating bite. The bundle in Raven's arm loosed a high-pitched wail of fear. Defiance sparked in her chest. Not like this. Red eyes howled back to life and lightning answered, cleaving the ursine creature in half at the waist. Its heavy body crashed down, loosing one last roar in its dying moments. The call was taken up by other Grimm, one after the other. The horde had found her again. There would be no rest. No respite. No time to recharge her aura. No time for anything. Only running. Raven grit her teeth and limped away, favoring her right leg. The bundle in her arms warbled softly, causing her to clutch it closer to her chest. It'll be alright. She rasped. We're nearly there now. It was a lie, and she knew it. There would be no help here. No salvation. No last-minute miracle to pluck victory from the jaws of defeat. With each passing moment she grew weaker, slower as the poison crept through her veins. She'd fought it for the better part of a day now, resisted through sheer strength of will. But thought the spirit was willing, the flesh was weak. She could feel her muscles melting from within, organs liquefying with each passing minute. It wouldn't be long now. Poor little Branwen. The dark humanoid shape lunged at her out of the undergrowth, cutting her off. Her boots bit into the ground and she flung herself aside, only to gasp as a blade raked across her ribs. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. He began to circle her as she staggered away. No tribe to save you. Golden eyes flashed as lightning crackled above, illuminating a crazed grin. No one left to protect you. His twin wrist blades flicked out, barrels primped and ready to fire, eager and willing to carve into her flesh. All your friends so far away, won't you surrender? It's not too late. Tittering softly, he offered her a hand. Join us. Salem is a most merciful mistress. Once upon a time, Raven would have taken such an offer out of fear, if nothing else. Now. She drew herself up to her full towering height. Take your bloody mercy and shove it up your. The gun blades barked, aiming for the bundle in her arms. She twisted aside and gasped as a dust round pierced her shoulder and a lung. Didn't matter. She was already dead. The poison had seen to that. It was too late for an antidote. Much too late. Blood bubbled past her lips. Still, she refused to fall. Pride kept her standing. Hatred gave her strength, if only for a little while. So. This is where I die. I didn't want to go out like this. Laughter tumbled past bruised lips. What's so funny? You. Pivoting on one heel, she sucked in a ragged breath. Your goddess makes me puke. Sure enough, her killer bridled. Full of a faunus. He really was too easy to read. Insult his precious Salem, and he'd fly into a frothing red rage. Any moment now. Raven shifted the bundle to her good arm and planted her feet. The madman lunged. Then die. She wasn't quite fast enough to stop the first strike, it raked across her left eye and obliterated it. Pain snarled through her as half her vision darkened for Vermore, but she didn't fall. She slapped the blade away, then caught it with her left hand, only to cry out as the lunatic hacked it away at the elbow. It was pain unlike any other. Agony eternal. Then that wretched stinger stabbed out at her once again, seeking her vitals just as it had before. With a snarl born from fury as much as desperation, the spring maiden stepped into death's embrace, hooked an arm around that ghastly chitinous appendage, and reeled him in. It bit deep into her side, but she didn't flinch. Didn't back down even as yet more poison pumped into her veins. Did not hesitate, even for a moment. She yanked him closer, smashing their skulls together. I may fall. Firm fingers closed about his face. But I'm taking you with me, 𝐫𝐞𝐽. Yellow eyes widened to gargantuan proportions. Raven smiled, grinning from ear to ear. And so the bird caught the scorpion. Azure flames leaped from her palm and burst into the air, followed by an agonizing yowl that had no business coming from a human throat. Tyrion crashed backward to the forest floor, stinger ripping itself from her hip as he went. The wretched smell of burnt flesh filled the night. Quivering hands clutched at the ruin of his face, leaving him to shriek as the balefire continued to eat away at him. Ha! His screams gave her more relief than 1,000 climaxes. Raven limped after him and conjured a sword of pure ice to her hand. Snatched it up in a reverse grasp. It began to crack and crumble within her grasp almost immediately, a sure sign of her exhaustion. Didn't matter. It would last long enough. When her prey tried to rise, she stomped down with her left leg, pinning him in place. Thunder ripped through the clouds overhead as Raven raised the blade high. And this, she rasped, is checkmate. Her weapon stabbed down, piercing his chest. Tyrion 𝐫𝐞𝐽 expired with a croaking gurgle. I'm coming, goddess. Raven wrenched the blade in the wound, just to be sure. That icy katana shattered a moments later, leaving her clasping ruined shards of Horfrust. She cast them aside and left the broken blade embedded in her killer's hideous body. Whether he survived or not, he was no longer her concern. She scarcely had the strength left to move now, let alone breathe. The bundle in her arms shifted anew. The lone hazy eye swept down to regard her pride and joy. Little lilac orbs gazed up at her, all of 3 months old, framed by a dusting of golden hair. I'm sorry. Raven croaked out an apology. I never should have taken you from Tai. I thought you'd do well in the tribe. Yang would have, too. She would have been strong. So strong. All of Mistral would have quailed before her might. Now she would be dead. She would die out there in the wilderness, mere moments after her mother. Raven was prepared to pay for her folly with her life. She deserved as much for meddling with fate and was prepared to meet her end. But Yang, sweet Yang, little innocent Yang. She didn't deserve this. Bitter tears stung at the edges of her eyes, turning to so much steam beneath the might of her maiden powers. Where would the power go when she expired? Raven had an awful sinking suspicion. She didn't want to think about it, but reality wouldn't let her be. To Yang? Surely not. She was much too young. Wasn't she? Raven took another step. Her legs faltered, sending her tumbling to her knees. She tried to move. Tried to rise. To do something. Anything at all. But she couldn't. Here at last her body betrayed her. She felt her head bow and her vision dim. Yang stirred in her arms, whimpering softly. Poor girl. She didn't understand. She might never understand. To live alone in a world without parents was a terrible thing indeed. Please, someone, anyone, let the burden fall on my shoulders. She cast a desperate gaze at the stormy sky above. Don't let the sins of the mother fall on her daughter. I'll do anything. If it's my life you want, then take it. Go ahead. I offer it freely. Just someone take the girl. In her dying moments, Raven gathered up the last dregs of her life and screamed. She broke her soul, broke her semblance, and still she pushed. Incredibly, the heavens answered her. Something fell crashed really. Through the clouds, hit the tree line, and slammed through it. They struck the ground at speed, spraying water and mud in every direction. The impact nearly ripped Raven from her knees and sent her sprawling. Even then it was all she could do to focus her fading vision. She saw a figure. Humanoid. Not 𝐫𝐞𝐽. Not grim, either. The voice came to her on the rain. Where the hell am I? And in that moment, Raven Branwen finally broke. Her arm stretched toward him. Take the girl. .0.0.0. Sometimes, Naruto's bad luck amazed even him. For better or worse, for good or ill, he just couldn't seem to catch a break. He hadn't asked to fall into that portal after finishing of Kaguya. Hadn't expected her to act in one last petty act of defiance, much less for a crimson portal to open up under his feet and simply rip him away from his word. How had this happened? He didn't know. None of this made sense. Not a lick of it. He was tired, sore, and now soaking wet thanks to all this rain. But he remembered a voice. Take the girl. Which girl? What girl? Why did someone want him to take them? Blue eyes blinked. Narrowed, now. Focused. The quick checklist allayed his worst fears. Arms. Check. Legs. Check. Body. Mostly intact. Kurama. Gonna be sick. Check. Well, that was good, wasn't it? Everything was intact. His legs ached abominably from that improvised landing, his head was on fire, and he was fairly certain he was going to be sore come morning, but all's well that ends well, right? Any landing you could walk away from was a good one in his book. Then he saw her. The young woman lay on her knees before him, reaching out imploringly. "Take the girl." She was clearly dying, her body savaged in such a way that nothing short of a miracle could save her. And decent medical attention would only prolong her agony. Her left was just gone, her right arm a tattered mess, complete severed well above the elbow, hacked into shoulder below her collarbone. To say nothing of her leg, one could see the bone in her thigh. There was a child in her arm, mere months old at a guess. And yet for all her wounds the woman's faintly glowing eye regarded him intently. "Take her." She all but shoved the babe at him. Like any sane man, Naruto balked at her. "Wait, what? I don't understand." "Take the girl." She thrust the bundle into his chest and he stumbled, narrowly catching the infant, who in turn began to wail. "Who is Yang?" The word escaped the woman on a thread of breath over her cries. "Her name is Yang. You have to take her to." "Take her to? To who?" But the woman didn't answer. Her eyes had gone glassy, vacant and dim. As he looked on she slumped over and struck the earth, gazing blankly into the distance. A chill shot down his spine, and for a moment he thought he felt ghostly fingers touch his shoulder. "No. No way. Not a chance." "The hell you don't." He burst forward, slapped his marked palm against her shoulder and pushed. Chakra burst from him and into her, causing her to jump. Once. Twice. Thrice. Her body convulsed where it lay, but still it didn't draw breath. Her wound slid shut. And yet she still didn't breath. Her ruined eye did not regrow, nor did the stump of her arm regenerate. Come on," he rasped. "Don't go dying on me now. I don't even know who you are." And as he did, he looked down at the girl who'd been foisted off on him. Blue eyes met violet. The latter were glowing. Burning with living lilac flames. "Oh, that can't be good." He turned his gaze back to the woman, still as a grave. "Don't die," he muttered, feeding her yet more chakra. "Come on, don't die, please don't die. A.N. Read this note, would you kindly? Remember. Ember's rule. If folks don't like this, it'll be deleted and consigned to the plot bin. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. Time, and of course, the reviews, will tell if Raven lives. So in the immortal words of Atlas. Review would you kindly? And enjoy the previews. Potential ones at that. Previews. Naruto didn't know the first thing about raising a child. Of course, he didn't give up. That simply wasn't his way. Not now, not ever. He was going to give it his best shot, consequences be damned. Raising a super-powered daughter in Remnant. What could possibly go wrong? The fist slammed into his shoulder. Don't jinx it, you ass. Daddy. By the sage, he was weak to that word. Raven was alive. The realization brought Naruto no end of relief as he traveled. Only just, her chest barely rising and falling every few seconds where she lay on the gurney, but alive nonetheless. He wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth. Not after the day he'd had. For a moment, she really did perish back there in that clearing. He'd felt her heart stop until it restarted under his ministrations. Against all odds, he'd managed to pull her back from the abyss. Yet despite that, Raven would not wake. Her eye might yet be restored, given enough time and attention, but her left arm was gone, severed at the elbow. Sage chakra or not, he wasn't able to regrow that. She would have to adapt when she woke up. If she woke up. Thankfully, he'd learned her name from a tattered journal he'd found among his few meager belongings. The contents were not exactly illuminating, but some knowledge was better than none. The few pages that weren't burned or caked in blood offered little in the way of information, mere pieces of the greater whole. References to a man named Osmond and a woman named Salem. Oblique mentions of doom and gloom. That, and running, and running again. Little more. In the end, he'd been left with no choice but to fashion a stretcher and have two clones carry her as they made their way to the next town. At least, he hoped there was a town in this direction. Because if it wasn't, well. Naruto didn't know the first thing about raising a child. Of course, he wouldn't be giving up. That simply wasn't his way. Not now, not ever. He was going to give it his best shot, consequences be damned. There were just so many obstacles to deal with. For starters, he needed food. Supplies. Resources. He couldn't very well feed a baby normal food. And he'd be needing money to pay for said food now that his meager supplies had run dry. Yup. Important supplies, like baby formula, diapers, fresh clothes. Which, again, he didn't have. Welcome to fatherhood, kid. Kurama's voice chortled in the back of his mind. This is your life, now. Apparently so. He risked a glance down at the infant cradled against his chest. Yang, huh? She actually looked up at him, then saw him. Not a bad name. Better than Ying by far, at any rate. So, kiddo. He cast a weather eye at the little bundle in his arms. Think we're close to a village. A lone finger touched the baby's forehead, drawing a merry sound from her. Because I don't really have anything to feed you with and I have no idea how to change a diaper. The pudgy hand reached up, got a good handful of his hair and yanked with startling strength. Bah. Hey. He laughed and tugged himself free despite her antics. Don't suppose you can say anything else, yet? The little brow furrowed. Abwa. Ha. She got you there. What, do you speak baby or something? His brow furrowed further upon Yang. You're not even a year old. No way you can talk, let alone understand me. Wha? She disagreed. Naruto sighed. You're mocking me, aren't you? Eyeless lilac orb stared up at him. They blinked once. And then. Ah. Naruto's heart skipped a beat. Did she just? No. Don't think about that. He was just taking care of her until her mother recovered, that was all. He certainly wasn't her father. Nope. Nah. There was just no way he could be a parent. He could take care of a kid, sure, but he didn't know the first thing about raising one. Ah. Yang Kutanu. Da. Kurama absolutely howled with laughter. No. Naruto cried. Bad baby. Don't go calling me that. Yang didn't listen, of course. Why would she? She was just a baby and she'd discovered a new word. Naruto wasn't sure why he was surprised. Kurama was no help whatsoever, furry bastard was all but beside himself and wouldn't stop cackling. Between the two of them, he soon came undone. I'm arguing with a baby. He clapped a hand to his forehead. I must be losing my mind. As luck would have it, he found a village just over the next rise. It was there that his luck took a turn for the strange. .0.0.0. That's Raven Branwen. Naruto felt a migraine coming on. Wait. He told a lie. He'd started to get a headache 5 minutes ago when someone had hallooed him at the entrance. Raven's unconscious form had been recognized. One thing led to yet another, and soon enough he found himself all but staring down a host of weapons. He couldn't even be asked to remember the man's name, much less the village. Kuro something or other. Meh. Probably not important. Apparently Raven's identity was, judging by the village's reaction. She must have been known around these parts, and his association with her damned him from the start. Really, he just needed supplies. He'd even offered to work for them thanks to his lack of money. What kind of reception was this? Look. We've established this. Naruto jerked a thumb over his shoulder. She's also in desperate need of medical attention, so if you just let us in, we'll get out of your hair. The garter was he a hunter? Did not lower his bow. Nor did his men. Begging from this place. We do not treat with bandits. Naruto frowned at that. Was she a bandit? Journal hadn't been terribly clear on that. Can I step on him? Kurama, no. We are not squishing the locals. See, you say that, but this one's annoying you, too. Truer words had never been spoken, but he attempted diplomacy once more. I would leave, he hazarded with a raised hand, but I've got a little one to look after, and no way to feed her. He shifted Yang in his free arm. Do you want her to starve to death? When the man's bow still held firm in the face of his words, he pressed the attack. Because that's what will happen if you drive us out. You may leave the child here. She will be looked after. Take the woman and beggin. I think we got off on the wrong foot. He tactfully ignored him and bowled on. Let's start over, yeah. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And you are? Liren. The man's bow did not waver, though his bearded face drew down in a scowl. This is your final warning, Outlander. Leave or you will be shot. You shall not enter Kuroyuri. Kurama growled. I'd like to see you try, little man. A flash of irritation sparked through Naruto's head and something ugly reared its head in his heart. It felt oddly like anger. How strange. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt like this. Pale gold eyes met sapphire across the way and he knew at once that he and Lee would never get along. Maybe he was on the wrong side of this. Perhaps this man was simply protecting his people. He might actually be a good person. But did he have to be so damn stubborn? Lust. Not. Hit. Him. It would be so easy to just bull past Lee and storm in, but that would mean leaving Raven behind with his clones. And then what? Reality yanked at him. The entire village would turn against him. He'd have to fight for every inch. He didn't want to break anyone here and this people looked flimsy. Yet what other choice did he have but to defend himself? Yang whimpered in his arms, sensing his distress. Right. To hell with this. He was cold, he was tired, and now the kid was crying. He wasn't a violent sort. Never had been. Never would be. But even he had his limits. His patience was already shot to hell, Raven needed to have her wounds treated by a proper doctor, and Yang was hungry. Moreover, the sun was going down. And at the end of the day, for all his principles, Lee was in his way. Right. Just gotta be gentle with him. Very gentle. Naruto raised a hand and snapped his fingers. One of his clones responded immediately, lowering Raven's gurney to the ground. His copy stepped up and took Yang from his arms, then began rocking her back and forth. Within a matter of moments she began to calm, if only just. From there the doppelganger stepped back, giving the original plenty of room. Blue eyes shimmered red. His body began to glow. "This is your last chance, Lee. Let me in and I'll be on my way by tomorrow. And if I refuse?" If nothing else, he had bravery in spades, he'd give him that. Naruto's body began to glow. "Then I walk right over you." The hunter's bow snapped taut. "Take aim." The shinobi sighed. "Kurama." Shock and awe. Naruto smacked his lips. "Yup." Lee loosed an arrow. His fellow hunters followed suit. Naruto clapped his hands, summoning a swell of golden chakra. It engulfed him in an instant. A storm of feathered shafts caromed harmlessly off Kurama's hide. In a matter of moments his old friend loomed over him and 𝐸𝐴, towering over everything for miles in every direction. Behind him, he heard little Yang Ku babble happily at the wondrous sight. Well, at least someone was enjoying the show. Lee and archers did not. Shrieks and wails went up as the man clambered backward. Some whimpered in fear, others fainted dead away and slumped bonelessly to the floor. Lee alone stood tall, but his once pensive expression had gone positively ashen. A look of hopelessness swept away his bravery, his fingers gone white-knuckled around his pow. "Let me pass." Naruto modulated his voice, sending it booming over the village. "You had your chance. What's all this now?" Someone came storming out and all but shouldered Lee aside. "Boy." They stabbed a finger up at him. "You there. Knock that off and come down here. I want a word with you." Naruto blinked. Once. Twice. Thrice, now. Well. He hadn't expected that. "Well?" The newcomer tapped a foot. "What's keeping you?" Reluctantly, he did as she'd asked. Kurama shimmered away as he dropped back to the earth. Much better. She, for this was certainly a member of the fairer sex, granted him a warm smile. "I'd rather talk this out, wouldn't you?" "And you are?" In short order he found himself face to face with a rather striking young woman, her dusky rose hair held in a loose braid over her shoulder, with pink eyes to match. She wore a long green dress with dark green around the shoulders, bearing long flared sleeves cutouts on the shoulders with a large band of plum purple on the cuffs. The pink sash around her waist completed the ensemble, contrasting the black flats she wore. Really, her eyes were the strangest shade of pink he'd ever seen. It bore repeating a second time. "My name is Anne." She planted one hand on her hip. "I'll ask again, are you a bandit?" Naruto flung up his arms. "No. I'm just a traveler, you know." "And that trick just now, can you do it again?" Keen eyes met his. "Yes." She grinned. Kurama mirrored it in his head. "I like this one. She respects power. See, Lee?" And turned a smile on the grizzled hunter. "He's not a bandit. Let him in." "But anyone from that tribe would have fought their way through by now." She jerked her chin at him. "This one hasn't. I dare say he only pulled that stunt because you pissed him off." Her eyes swept over him to Raven's prone form. "We can sort things out with her come morning." That same gaze narrowed as Naruto's clone passed Yang back to him. "Or did you really intend to deny a father and his daughter shelter for the night?" Naruto could have kissed Anne. Finally. Someone who understood. With Tamanid. "Father, no." The bowman lowered his weapon and ignored him wholeheartedly. "On your head be the consequences." "They always are." She patted his arm with warm affection. "We wouldn't be able to keep him out if we tried. Bravery can only do so much." "Alright, stranger." Those bright eyes pivoted to regard him in turn. "Come with me and we'll see our way to getting you settled for the night." Her gaze settled on Yang and softened. "There's a spare room in the tavern you can use." "How old is she?" He shrugged. "Couple of months." You know, I always did want a child." Anne touched a hand to Yang's face, preening as the girl cooed. "Not yours of course, but she's so cute and oh dear, I'm babbling, aren't I? Right this way." She grabbed him by the hand and tugged him away. "Let's get her fed and cleaned for the night, eh?" Naruto trailed after her with a sigh. Well, this was a start. Yes, it was certainly the start of something. How very little he knew. Anne, read this note, would you kindly? No, Ren has not been born yet. Haven't rightly. Remember. Ember's rule. If folks don't like this, it'll be deleted and consigned to the plot bin. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. Time, and of course the reviews, will tell if Raven lives. So in the immortal words of Atlas. Review would you kindly? And enjoy the previews. Potential ones at that. Previews. Ben's hand trailed across his arm. You've done so much good here, are you sure you can't stay? When's mommy gonna wake up? Yang tilted her little head. Hanai has a brother. Her lisp only made her request all the more adorable. Naruto fell out of his chair. My heart. The husband shouldn't treat his wife like that. Firm fingers tightened around his wrist. Apologize. Jacques bridled. How dare you? Do you have any idea who I am? Nope. Naruto smacked his lips. Now apologize. And if I refuse, I'll rearrange your face. Yang grinned. Best daddy ever. You have my attention, now. Naruto growled. I hope it was what you wanted. It was not. Lee ran awakened to a disaster the next morning. What disaster, you ask? A simple one. You see, he woke up to discover that every single item he owned was now dyed orange. Nothing had been spared. From the floor to the walls and the ceiling. Even his bow. Even the string of his bow. All had been stained a hideous shade of bright ghastly amber. The only color that was not orange, however, was his hair, which was now a shocking shade of pink. Pale knuckles clenched on the countertop as he regarded himself in the mirror. Pink. Why was it pink? Of all the colors. Lee considered himself a tolerant man. A patient man. A forgiving man. He was rigid in both word, self and deed, someone who strove to uphold honor and courage above all this. But this was dishonor. Somehow, he knew exactly whose fault this was. The low growl built in the back of the archer's throat. Uzumaki. .0.0.0. Ah, the cruel cries of chaos in the morning. Nothing quite like it. Truly, it was the sweetest of music to Naruto's ears. Served that bastard right for giving him a hard time yesterday. Wasn't that a little petty of you? Baby. He scratched the back of his head with a free hand. Do I regret it? Nope. And looked over her shoulder. That sounded like Lee. His grin broadened. Must but your imagination. It was simple enough to settle into Kuroyuri, easier even, with Yang taken care of and a good night's sleep behind him. While thriving, the village was still relatively new compared to outlying settlements, as such it had no shortage in the way of housing. If you could claim a space for yourself and maintain it, said space was yours for keeps. Case in point. This was originally meant to be a summer home for a merchant from Haven. And continued as she led him over the threshold. But he never came to claim it. You can stay here as long as you like. She drew a curtain aside for him, allowing to slip into the living room at his leisure. Here. Have a look. Naruto stepped in and did just that. He cast a weather eye about, considering everything in turn. Not bad, this place. Not bad at all. The carpet was a lush green to match the walls, many of which were festooned with rich tapestries. A warm hearth burned by the mantel, secured by a metal grate as smoke boiled up into a chimney. There was even a fine little table and tea set near the couch where Raven's still form currently lay, where one might serve drinks to their guests. Beyond that he glimpsed a rather large kitchen furnished with a small island, all utterly foreign to him since he had next to no idea how to cook. Round the corner a seat of stairs leading to the second floor. Hopefully the beds there were better than sleeping on the floor. What'd you think, kiddo? Yang cooed in his arms. Warm, happy and fed, she all but latched onto his hand as he touched her cheek. Truly, she was a veritable bowl of sunshine. And if those lovely little lilac eyes occasionally sputtered with violet flames, well, Naruto tried not to notice that. It was probably nothing. He wondered if she could comprehend her surroundings yet. Unlikely. She wasn't even a year old. Surely she couldn't be aware of things like that yet, could she? Ah. Boy. He frowned down at her. Stop that. He could have sworn the little terror grinned a gummy grin at him. The thought occurred to him, then. Say, this merchant, what happened to him? Then smile soured. Grim got him. It happens sometimes, especially on the outskirts. Naruto wrinkled his nose. Grim. Haha, very funny. She tapped his arm. You're such a kidder. No, really, what was a grim? It didn't sound like something he wanted to meet. Your friend can stay in the back. She informed him with a grimace, not speaking Raven's name. There's a nice little sitting room where she can sleep off whatever's ailing her. And cast a quick look to the comatose girl in question. We don't have much in the way of medical supplies, but she should be able to rest comfortably here so long as she stays out of sight. Naruto didn't rise to the bait. He was beginning to realize Raven was something of a known quantity in Mistral, and not the good kind. Her name inspired fear and terror, more than a few people had flinched away when they'd seen her carted through the streets. It served as an awful reminder. They weren't welcome here. Their stay could never be a permanent one. Whomever she was now, she clearly hadn't been a good person in the past. Perhaps not even now. And yet she begged you to save her child. We both know life isn't black and white. He frowned a little. That's fair. So? And rounded at him suddenly, pink eyes afire with curiosity. You can be honest with me. That woman, is she your? Kurama cackled at his expressed discomfort. And now we come to the meat of the matter. Fire burned through Naruto's face, turning whiskered cheeks scarlet. Was it hot in here? No. He waved his free arm with intent. We're not involved, really. I barely know Raven. And yet Yang has your hair. Her eyes straight to Yang in thinly veiled delight. And she seems quite fond of you. Aren't you, sweet 𝐸𝐻𝐼NG? The burbling Ku answered. Naruto scowled. Traitor. I'm telling you, she's not related to me. If you say so. And planted one hand on her hip and favored him with a bland look. But you're going to look after her all the same, no? Of course I am. He set his jaw. What kind of question is that? You're being weird. I'm trying to be kind, actually. She crooned. I could look after her for you. The battered blonde found himself frowning at that. You could? But of course. She's such a darling little thing. You could even leave her with me. Right, now she wasn't making a lick of sense. Why would I do that? Kurama stifled a small sigh. Thick as a brick, this one. If you feel you're not up to raising her, of course. Naruto flinched but a little. He'd given his word to Raven, his word was his bond. What was he without it? He wouldn't break his vow simply because he found himself inconvenienced. No, Yang was his responsibility. He wasn't about to give her away to anyone, even someone like him. There was a small, selfish part of him that wanted to accept until he stomped it into oblivion. Take the girl. I appreciate your offer, he shook his head. But I'm not giving her up. Not for anything. Even if you struggle. Hans' frown became a faint, sad little smile. He lifted his chin and glowered down at her. Even then. Even if it's hard. Even if you falter. Even if you fail. Failure's an old friend. He pulled Yang's tiny form closer to his chest. I've failed more times than any man, woman or child. Blue eyes met violet, watching intently as she tried to grab at his hair again. It just makes success all the sweeter. He wasn't afraid of failure. Never had been. Besides, I made a promise. And I don't go back on my word. It might take some time and a bit of work, but he was determined to give it his best shot. Got a problem with that? Her hand arched out and grabbed him by the chin. Would you die for that girl? Stoic blue orbs met intent pink. In a heartbeat. Her eyes flashed. Is that so? In all fairness, he expected chagrin from him, some scorn at the very least. Her sudden line of questioning couldn't have any other end. That aside, he wasn't much pleased with her badgering after she'd called his ability into question. Any moment now she'd call him a fool and be rid of him. SNRK. Or so he thought. In that, he was only half right. Gentle musical laughter floated through the air to reach his ears. Soft at first, little more than a snicker that she tried to contain behind a palm. It didn't last. Before long and began to guffaw openly in spite of his confusion. As he looked on, the young woman doubled over and clutched at her sides, giggling like some silly schoolgirl. Yang made a questioning noise in his arms. Naruto frowned. Was it something I said? Apparently, and found that reply horrendously funny because her shoulders absolutely convulsed. She was having an absolute fit now, unable to contain her hysterics. Oh my gods. She hooted. My sides. You're such a fool. Confusion burned away into anger. Hey, now. Abruptly, she straightened with smile. UPASS. What the hell? He stepped back when she started forward. Didn't you just say I was an idiot? Oh, you're a fool alright. A stubborn, brave, courageous fool. She sighed and wiped a mirthful tear from the corner of her eye. But you're a fool with a heart and the power to back it up. That makes all the difference in the world. My, she touched one hand to her cheek. You really are stubborn. I like that in a man. Oh ho. Danger, danger, danger. Silence stretched between them. Naruto frowned into it. Looks like you have something else on your mind. I do. She dithered, knees twisting, refusing to meet his eyes. But you may not like what I have to say. If you have something to say it. After that outburst, he was certain she couldn't possibly surprise him again. I promise I won't get mad. Alright. And sighed once and took the plunge, giving voice to her disquiet. I'll be frank with you, Sir Shinobi. Magenta eyes met azure, showing a hint of steel within. We don't have a hospital here. Our doctor's done all she can for your friend. Frankly, you'd be better off taking your friend to Haven for treatment. Another grimace stole over her features. Or maybe even a hospital in Vale given her reputation here in Mistral. No. Naruto frowned. Did you say something? No, a weak rasp came from the couch. Not Vale. Naruto jolted. You're awake. 9 rapid steps carried him back the way he'd come, just in time to see Raven stir. Propped up on her good elbow and trembling, she glared up at him with a bleary eye, brow slick with sweat and dizzy with fever. She didn't even seem to comprehend her injuries. She just stared at him. Through him. Like he wasn't even there. And took one look at he and sighed. I'll get her something to drink. Where's Yang? Raven croaked, voice weak from lack of sleep and water alike. Is she safe? Is she alright? She's right here. Naruto knelt and offered the wounded woman her baby. See? I took care of her. Just like you asked. Good. Here at last, a spark of life came back into that dull red eye, if only for a moment. She ran her fingers over the tiny babe's head, and those lovely little lilac eyes locked onto her. "That's good," she cooed almost to herself, offering her a finger. Tiny hand's fingers wrapped around it, holding tight. "You kept your promise. Here." Anne materialized beside them, a ceramic cup in hand. "Drink." Raven reached out with her maimed arm, only to frown when she realized she couldn't accept it and support herself at the same time. A flicker of horror passed through her good eye. She trembled but once before she managed to master herself and shake her head. Anne was having none of it. The younger woman all but rammed the cup against Raven's lips, forcing her to drink. Eventually, her patient did. Naruto flicked her a quick glance. "Thanks." And preened. "Don't mention it. Should I give you two a moment?" His blush brought reinforcements. "I keep telling you we're not like that." Raven groaned in the same moment. "Why is it always blondes? Every damn time." "Not helping, Birdie. I thought," the bandit swallowed and visibly struggled with something for a moment. "I dreamed," another swallow, the words wrenching themselves from her. "She was gone. Dead. Like me." Her eye began to droop. "She has the power now. Keep her safe." Naruto frowned. "Wait, what power? Does it have something to do with her eyes?" He felt a flash of fear from her, a nameless terror so powerful that it nearly overwhelmed him. Mindless, bleeding fear. Her good arm latched onto his sleeve, knuckles gone wide against the bright fabric. For a moment he thought she might say something, but no, whatever it was terrified her so much that she daren't speak it. Her lips sealed shut and she shook her head anew. "Doesn't matter now." Her lone eye fixed him, burning with singular intensity. "Don't take me to Vale. Ozpin will find me. He'll take her." "The hell is Ozpin? No." He shook his head. "Never mind that." His free hand settled on her shoulder and gave her shake when she started to nod off. "Don't you die on me. You're not allowed to die. Yang needs you." "No." She glared at him in a brief moment of lucidity. "She doesn't. Not a rotten woman like me. Like hell she doesn't." Something stirred in Naruto's chest. It felt like, yes, it was. Anger. Not wrath or vengeance, but pure, righteous fury. How dare she? Yang whimpered in his arms, no doubt sensing his distress. His throat closed. He didn't want to shout for fear of frightening her, but everything was so raw right now. Then nudged into his side and swept the poor infant into her arms. "Go on." She drew away with a whisper. "Give that bitch hell." He intended to. There could be no purer love than what a parent felt for their child. In this moment he may as well be Yang's father. No one else had looked out for her as he had. And he'd be bloody well damned if he let some deadbeat bird die before she took responsibility for her actions. "You're her mother, aren't you?" He slammed his forehead against Raven's, jolting her back to the couch. "You have a responsibility. You don't get to die and leave your kid behind. She has you. Tough. She needs you. She's better off without me." Raven jerked back, unable to meet his gaze. "That thing, she won't find her here. She's safe." Her shoulders slumped. "After what I've done I should just." Naruto's right hand blurred in an open palm, cracking across the uninjured side of her face. It wasn't even a fourth of his full might, yet it was still more than enough to send her head snapping to the right with an audible smack. The back of her head struck the pillows as she sprawled there, stunned. Raven snarled at him, eye wide. "Why you? I was talking. And I'm not listening." He didn't give her a chance to finish. She might have said something else, but he didn't hear it. His forehead met hers again, eyes wide, teeth all but snapping at her in his wrath. "You do have a reason to live. Protect your daughter, damn it. Help me. Fight. Don't be a coward." He wanted to grab her and shake her until she saw sense. It was a terrible thing to grow up without a parent. He wasn't about to let her slip into the back just to satisfy a guilty conscience. Yang might not know what she was losing, no, but when she was older, she undoubtedly would. He wasn't about to tell her he'd let her mother pass away when he could have done something. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. Who was Raven to decide who lived and died? What gave her that right? "That's all I am." Her voice was a whisper, no whimper. "A coward. If you were a coward, you wouldn't have protected Yang, wouldn't have given her to me. That's not the act of a coward. That's bravery." Her resolve wavered. "Bravery, huh? You told me to take your girl. Well, guess what? I did. And I'm taking you to a hospital in Haven." He grabbed her by her good hand and held it up before her face, forcing her to recognize their intertwined fingers. "You're going to get better, you're going to be there for Yang, or so help me. I will introduce you to Kurama." "What's a Kurama?" His partner's skull burst forth from him with a great golden glower and snarled. "You don't want to know." Raven absolutely squeaked. "Meep. You'd best shut up and accept his generosity." And called over his shoulder. "Trust me. You don't want to deal with the fox. He'll squish you." Another silence fell over them, heavy and cloying like a wet blanket. You just can't let me rest in peace, can you? Fine. Raven slumped back to the couch as a bleary smile crossed her scarred face. I'm sleepy. Her eye fluttered and she subsided with a sigh. In a matter of moments she was gone again, her chest rising and falling with erratic breaths. Naruto gave her another hard shake, to no avail. Her eyes didn't open. Wouldn't or couldn't remain to be seen. Still, she kept breathing. He'd take that for what it was. Maybe and was right. Maybe she did not proper medical treatment. He couldn't keep pumping her full of chakra every day. Her body was in bad shape already. Who knew what that might do to her? Well, Naruto stood with an effort. Haven it is, then. Anne sidled up to him and returned Yang to his arms, pausing just long enough to look down at Raven's still form. She might not be in her right mind. But she had been there at the end. So much fear. Not at him, but something else. What was she so afraid? Would someone come for Yang? Who was Ozpin? Did that name matter? Was he an enemy? A threat? Or did she simply think that way? Too many questions. Not enough answers. But when had that stopped him before? She's certainly intense. Yang whimpered and waved her pudgy little hands. SHHH, she's going to be alright. Naruto reached down and touched a hand to Raven's forehead. I'll take her to the city myself. Just need a map. An's hand trailed across his arm a moment later. You could do so much good here, are you sure you won't stay? In all honesty, the notion tempted him. He wanted nothing more than to rest his tired bones. But he couldn't. Not yet. Maybe once everyone was safe and secure, but for now he had no choice but to forge on as he always had. He shook his head. I'm sorry. I have to go. Alright, then. He turned in time to see Anne sweeping a bit of preserved food into her knapsack. I'm coming with you. She seemed to realize the weight of her words a moment later. Well, that is to say you need a guide, right? She looked away, hiding a faint hint of color in her cheeks. I'd be happy to show you the way. Naruto blinked. Really, you don't have to do that. And fixed him with a faintly bemused look. Can you even change a diaper? Kurama coughed. Just once. Naruto winced a little. No. That settles it, then. She hefted her pack. You need me. In the end, Naruto had no choice but to give in. He needed a guide. And was willing to provide. Well, that'd save him from diaper duty. And from that decision, well, things would change. It would be the beginning of a grand journey, one that spanned all of Remnant. In the years to come some would call the series of events that followed a miracle, others a disaster, and still more, something else entirely. Looking back, he might have seen the look in her eyes and realized how wonderfully, beautifully complicated his life was to become. But really, how was he to know that? This was merely the first move, the first domino of many to come. A single misguided act of kindness would change the world. For better, worse, well. Who could say? Anne. Read this note, would you kindly? Remember. Ember's rule. If folks don't like this, it'll be deleted and consigned to the plot bin. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. As to why Raven is struggling so much, the answer is simple. Girin's poison literally liquefies your organs. She took 3 doses of that. Naruto fixed most of that, but it's a matter of her finding the will to live. Which he just gave her. Even then, it promises to be a long recovery with a lost eye and a limb. She still has her dominant sword arm thankfully, and as we've all seen, that's all she really needs. Worry not. That Willow scene is coming, just couldn't fit it in here. So in the immortal words of Atlas. Review would you kindly? And enjoy the previews. Potential ones at that. Previews. Hospitals cost money, pal. Naruto's smile was all teeth. I'm sure we can work something out. And slapped a palm to her forehead. Saw that coming. Little Yan gurgled he agreement. Did you hear? There's a big shot visiting Haven. Think it's a Schnee? Might be. Hind. That. Maiden. Lionheart whimpered. It will be done, my queen. They say time waits for no one. Neither man nor beast. Not even a shinobi. Daddy. Isn't it remarkable that one can have all the power in the world and yet the words of a single child can stop your heart? Case in point, Naruto could run faster than a lightning bolt, obliterate mountains and stand toe-to-toe with gods. And yet the moment he heard little Yang call his name he clutched at his arm and stumbled across the threshold of his home. He groaned less than eloquently. Still not used to that. A streak of gold collided with his left leg and latched on with all her might. Which, given her powers, actually proved quite considerable. Pound you? Oomph. He grunted. So you did. All of 3 years old, her lilac eyes were sharp and bright, shimmering with flames, to say nothing of her hair. It really was getting quite long, already down her shoulders in a curtain of spun gold. She'd need a haircut soon or not, he winced, recalling his last attempt. Instead, he smiled. "Here, I brought you a present. What do you think this is, pal? A charity?" Naruto heaved a sigh as his right eye began to twitch. Ironic, really. There was just something about him, the number 9 these days. 9 days wasted in Haven trying to find a hospital that would take Raven. 9 minutes in this lobby trying to convince the receptionist to let them through. 9 little words in response, and now they threatened to send his already frayed temper screaming over the now he didn't much appreciate the irony. "Can I kill this schmuck?" Kurama agreed wholeheartedly. "I think we should kill him. No one would miss him. Must resist. Killing bad. Killing very tempting right about now. I think this is a hospital." Naruto grit his teeth until he felt a molar crack in the back of his jaw. By the time he blinked, it had already healed. "It took us several days to get here, and really, he was never moving that slowly ever again. I have a woman here in desperate need of medical attention." He jerked a thumb over his shoulder where a prone Raven lay on a cot, guarded by a vigilant and who held yang clothes in her arms. "I've done all I can for her. Now do your damn job and help." The orderly, a stick-thin little man, didn't bat an eyelash. "Do you have any lean?" His twitching intensified. "Well, no. A job, then." "Like I said, I don't. Steady source of income." Naruto absolutely growled. "Let me finish. I don't see much point in that." The receptionist blinked back at him, wholly unperturbed. "This isn't Vale. Now unhand me before I call security." Naruto craned his neck back. Anne shrugged helplessly. "Sorry." He saw her mouth the word. The wild idea struck him. Kurama scowled. "Naruto, no." "Naruto, yes. Let me see your patience." He blurted suddenly, releasing the man and startling him in the same instant. "I can help them. Heal them. Would that be payment enough?" His smile was all teeth. "I'm sure we can work something out." Then slapped a palm to her forehead. "Saw that coming." Little Yang gurgled her agreement. "Are you mad?" The orderly's expression hardened even as his own crumbled. "I'm not letting you anywhere near our patient's weight." He looked past him, noticing Raven for the first time. Beady black eyes narrowed upon her. "That woman looks familiar. I've seen a poster of her somewhere." Then stiffened. Naruto winced. Right, time to scarp her. He didn't relish the idea of fighting off the authorities, much less turning the city against him. The man was only just reaching for a phone when the blonde scooped up Raven in one arm, then Anne and little Yang in another. Then he booked it. .0.0.0. Leonardo Lionheart fumbled for his scroll as it ran atop his desk. Trembling fingers closed around the rectangular device, nearly dropping it. His anxiety. The traitorous headmaster inhaled once and exhaled, willing himself to be calm, to still his hammering heart. Only then did he dare speak. Even then he couldn't quite suppress the faint quiver in his voice, nor the hitch in his words. "Do you have her?" "No sir," came the voice of his assistant. "You wanted us to call if any woman matching her description turned up. She's been sighted in a hospital downtown." Leonardo sighed in relief. "I'll alert the authorities. Don't let her leave the city." It took everything he had not to shout with joy. At last. Release. Here it was, his chance for escape. Salem had been furious at the loss of Kalos, madman he might have been, but there could be no denying his usefulness. Tyrion was very good at what he did. Or at least he was. He'd seen what was left of him. Raven was not a kind woman. The faunus had died slowly, in terrible pain. And with his demise, Salem's wrath burned bright. She'd threatened to tear strips out of his hide if spring wasn't found and secured forthwith. And now, miracle of miracles, she was here in Haven. Within his grasp. Was his luck finally beginning to turn? "Sir, that's just it." His receptionist paused, snapping him back to reality. "The report we received, she wasn't alone. There was a man and a woman with her. Also a child." "Don't worry, Samantha." Another lie. He told so many now. What was one more? "I'll see to it that they're unharmed." He hung up soon thereafter, alone with the roiling storm of his thoughts. She must be told. He hung up and rose from behind his desk. 3 rapid steps carried him to the false wall of his office. A quick touch caused it to part, revealing the corridor within. He darted down it, taking the steps 2 at a time, nearly tripping over himself in his haste to reach the other end of the wall. Truly, he bore Raven Branwen no ill will, much less her kin. But he wanted to live. And for that to happen, she had to die. Once the Spring Maiden was taken, and the vault emptied, he would finally be left alone, he hoped. Finally he reached his destination. The sullen seer stirred in the dark at the end of the hall, making that ghastly noise it always did. Leo shivered at the sight of it and knelt slowly. Palms splayed on either side of him, he waited for a response. An awful moment of silence filled the chamber. He wondered if the grim device would respond to him or worse, lash out, if its mistress had finally grown weary of him. There were some days that he almost found himself wishing for the sweet release of death. But it would not be this day. Its smoky surface became clear as crystal. Red eyes gaze back at him, set within a pallid white face. Leonardo. A voice like sin itself purred. Do you have news for me? Yes, your grace. He prostrated himself before the awful creature so he wouldn't have to look at the devil he'd made a deal with. I have a report to make. .0.0.0. Unbelievable. Naruto reappeared in a flicker of saffron, heels digging into dirty asphalt. If anyone cared for the sudden appearance of a glowing man carrying 2 women and a baby, they did little to show it. This was Mistral. Crime ruled here. So long as you didn't shank someone in the street, most wouldn't much care. An elderly woman looked their way, shrugged, and kept moving. Then shoved Yang into his arms and tumbled into the street. Blurg. She exhaled violently, losing what little she'd eaten this morning. Do you have to move that fast? Naruto muttered a half-hearted apology, shifting Raven on his shoulder as his mind continued to whirl. A flicker of his fingers palmed the unconscious woman off to one of his clones. He tried not to look at her face, tried to ignore just how pale she was getting. How thin. He'd done his best to keep pumping her with chakra, to keep her healthy. She still hadn't woken since Kuroyuri. It wasn't fair. He could run faster than light, obliterate mountains, heal from just about any wound, even heal others to some extent. Yet for all his skills he couldn't do a thing for Raven. She needed care and medicine he couldn't provide, proper supplies he had no idea how to acquire. What little Lean and had on her was needed for their lodging and Yang, even if it wasn't, it was hardly something they could afford to spend. We could go back and force them. Kurama offered. We both know they couldn't stop us. It was tempting, but no. These are innocent people. I'm not going down that road. Once he started he was afraid he wouldn't be able to stop. He'd already suffered one too many fools in the city today alone. If he dealt with one more, he was absolutely going to snap. Anne tugged him aside to a nearby park bench. What now? What indeed? By this point he was at his wit's end. Raven was wanted in Mistral. He didn't know why, but he'd seen the posters. They hadn't been there the first day or so, only a few dozen here and there, by now they lined almost every block. Really, it was a miracle no one had made the connection between them yet. That, or perhaps Mistral's police force was just incompetent. He was leaning toward the latter. I'll find a way, he buried his face in one hand with a sigh, holding Yang close with the other. I always do. Naruto, you can't just carry Raven around for the rest of your life. His head snapped back up again. Wanna bet? She flinched and he regretted his words immediately. Sorry, he muttered. Didn't mean to snap at you. I need to help her. His gaze flitted down to Yang. She tugged at his pink finger and started sucking on it. The ghost of a smile touched his whiskered visage. He'd promised, damn it. He never went back on his word. She deserved to have a mother even if it felt like fate itself was conspiring against them. Pardon me, a new voice interjected in a soft drawl. I couldn't help but overhear your predicament. Perhaps I can help. Naruto bolted to his feet and pivoted to face the newcomer without thinking. The stakes were made. He found himself face to face with a tall yet slender woman clad in a flowing violet dress he didn't recognize. Her hair was blonde, carefully curled golden ringlets tumbling down her shoulders to frame a youthful visage in the spring of youth. The next thing he noticed were her eyes, for they were a familiar shade of lavender. Any comparison he might have made with a certain 𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐝 ended there, for these eyes held an insouciant gleam to them, a dark promise of mischief, her smile just a shade short of insolent. Most prominent was the spider tattoo stood out on her bare shoulder, black ink against tan skin. HELLO, she flicked her fingers at him in a dainty wave. You're a hard man to find. Anne hissed out a quick breath and shrank back. Spider. You know me, darling. A fan flicked out, hiding a smile. I'm touched. Didn't think a country bumpkin like you knew much of anything. I know of you. The brunette reared back and spat at her feet. Your kind were driven of out Kuroyuri long ago. The so-called spider tittered softly. Dear girl, you know how hard it's to get rid of spiders. She rolled her shoulders, causing her tattoo to twist. We're everywhere these days. Naruto considered her as one might a deadly insect. Can I help you, miss? Malachite. Malachite. Her nose wrinkled. On second thought, don't use my last name. Makes me sound like an old woman. Miranda will do. As he looked on in utter confusion, she offered a sweeping bow. I happened to overhear your little tale of woe, and it's moved my heart. She straightened thrice as quickly, unable to hide her smile. I'd like to offer you a helping hand in your time of need. Hey, now. He wasn't that daft. She has suspicious timing. Were we followed? If so, why didn't we sense her? You can help us. How? Suspicion reared its ugly head in his heart. We have nothing to pay you with. That keen gaze of hers locked onto him with intent. Her smile grew. Lucky for you that I have no need of lean, then. What? I deal in favors, dear. She patted his cheek. A little bird told me you made quite the ruckus down in Kuroyuri. Naruto went still. And turned beet red. How? How indeed. Much to Naruto's chagrin, Malachite began to circle him, considering him as one might a fine steak. I nearly didn't believe my ears. She cocked her head to one side. My girls tell me they saw a man turn into a giant golden fox. A lone hand gestured expansively, sketching Kurama's likeness in the air with a bit of dust. Like some kind of golden grim, one large enough to tower over that tiny little settlement with ease. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Naruto blanched despite himself. Well, maybe we did show off a little. We? Miranda Malachite blinked. No matter, I like a little eccentricity. But where was I? Oh, yes. Her smile had entirely too many teeth. Imagine my surprise when a man matching your description popped up in my city. I'll have you know we spent the better part of a week looking for yo. Does all this prattling have a point? Patience, now. Good things come to those who wait. My, you're well fit. Her hand ran the length of his chest. But is it all for show, I wonder? Her wrist blurred, only to find itself caught in his grasp. His fingers bit down, grinding muscle against bone. Strong, too. She gasped in pain. Good reflexes. Naruto scowled. Don't do that again. IWON''T. She looked past him then, to the clone carrying Raven. As I live and breathe. Her eyes widened a little. You really do have Raven Branwen. And here I thought my pets were exaggerating. Enough. She was yanking his chain for reasons he didn't understand, and Naruto wasn't much inclined to play her games. He turned to go. Anne, come on. This is a waste of time. She won't get treatment anywhere else. Malachite called after him before he made it 2 steps. They'll throw her in a cell. He snorted. They can try. Miranda tutted at that. So loyal. Yang cooed softly in his arms. Just like that, Malachite's entire demeanor changed. My, she leaned forward, eyes alight. Is she yours? Naruto pulled her closer. Not by blood, but yeah, I'm taking care of her. Is that so? A hungry look flashed through her eyes. Let's get down to business, then. I can help your friend. My doctors don't ask questions. They do as they're told. I'd think her life would be worth a favor or 5. A muscle jumped in Naruto's jaw. 3. 4. She haggled. 2. He shot back. Back. His fellow blonde feigned pain and clutched at a breast. It did interesting things to her bosom. You drive a hard bargain, my friend. Naruto sniffed. I'm not our friend. But you could be. She touched his chin. I can be a very good friend. Just for that. He batted her hand away. No, thank you. I don't think we want any of your help. Miranda looked down. Your daughter seems to disagree. Yang waved a pudgy little arm at her, grabbing at Miranda's ringlets. Naruto scowled at the tiny babe. Treachery. It is said that children are a good judge of character. What does that say about an infant, then? So what's it to be, then? You heal me, I help you. She held out her hand. In the end, we both get what we want. And what do you want? She grinned. Everything, really. Her hand caressed his cheek. But I'll settle on you for now. Naruto, no. Anne butted up against his shoulder. Don't do this. Don't listen to her. We can find a better way. What other way is there? He rounded on her with a scowl. You just said it yourself, I can't carrying Raven around like a sack of flour everywhere I go. No fair. She glowered at him. Using my words against me. I have conditions. He received a giddy giggle. Name 'em. I won't kill for you. He held up one finger. I won't hurt anyone for your amusement. Perish the thought. Another pawing at her chest. I don't want another hired thug or some dumb muscle. Her purple eyes flashed with a sudden burst of glee. I want a man who thinks for himself. 2 favors it is, then. Naruto grunted. I still don't trust you. Good. Trust is overrated. Miss Malachite beamed. What'd you say? Shake my hand. Anne made a noise of discontent behind him and pointedly looked away. Come on now, Miranda prodded. Won't you shake a poor sinner's hand? Naruto had a feeling he'd regret this. But what choice did he have? Why favors? He stalled. Because I think a favor or 2 from you would be a powerful thing indeed. Miranda Malachite's smile was pure poison honey. You pay your debts, don't you, sweetie? You're a man of honor. I'm sure you keep your promises, too. Never go back on your word. That sort of thing. She'd read him like a book. He clasped her hand. Her grin grew. Yes. She all but purred the word as her fingers tightened around his. We have an accord. Are you ready? One last question. His frown deepened. Why go this far? She flinched a little and he pressed the attack. You actively sought me out, hunted me down, and went out of your way to help me. All this for 2 favors. No. He shook his head. I don't buy it. What's your real reason? Reasons? He received a shrug. Let's just say we have a mutual interest in keeping your pretty bird alive and leave it at that. Why does that not fill me with confidence? Another shrug. That's your moral hang-up, not mine. I have my reasons for wanting her alive. You have yours. Her eyes flitted to Yang. You know, I always wanted girls of my own twins, perhaps. Naruto bridled and held his ward close. Don't even think about it. Oh, hush. She swatted his shoulder with her fan. I'm not fool enough to try and take her from you. Something tells me I wouldn't survive the attempt. His expression turned thunderous. You wouldn't. There it is. She crowed, dark exultation flashing across her face. That's the look I want to see. You fight to protect what's yours. Like a good parent should. There's nothing more honest than a father protecting his baby girl, wouldn't you agree? When he held his tongue, she shrugged. Feel free to stay in Mistral for a few days. Once more her hand glided over him. Petted his shoulder. We'll have your woman ride as rain. You keep saying that. She's not mine. Oh? A slender brow arched. Good to know. Anne made a keening noise between her teeth. Not another one. Another what? Naruto really didn't understand what she was getting at. Malachite patted his cheek anew. Let's get you lot squared away. Then we can talk business. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose. Why did he have the feeling he just made a deal with the devil? He really hadn't. Just the future mother of his offspring. Well, two of them at any rate. Wasn't that one and the same? And, to clarify, this is a young Miss Malachite before Milsha and Melanie were born. We never had a first name for her, so Miranda was chosen. Read this note, would you kindly? Remember. Ember's rule. If folks don't like this, it'll be deleted and consigned to the plot bin. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. That's no joke. I can't write without feedback. Guess that makes me weak TT. So in the immortal words of Atlas. Review would you kindly? And enjoy the previews. Potential ones at that. Previews? Anne wondered if she was going mad. She rocked Yang a little in her arms. What do you think, dear? The babe furrowed her brow. Ma. Anne went terribly still. Oh, dear. Hazel cracked his neck. Time to hunt a maiden. Miss Malachite pivoted, her lean face alight with delight. To think of it, I'd like to call in a favor. Did you hear? There's a big shot visiting Haven. Naruto blinked once. And? It's a Schnee. You have no idea who that is, do you? Regardless, he's here with his family. He owes us a debt. We helped him further SDC resources in Mistral in return for a cut of the profits. He never paid up. I already told you, I'm not a loan shark. I'm not about to beat up an innocent man. Innocent? She ran a hand over his armor. Trust me. When you see him, you'll understand. And he did. Raven opened her eyes. Fucking finally. The husband shouldn't treat his wife like that. Firm fingers tightened around his wrist. Apologize. Jacques bridled. How dare you? Do you have any idea who I am? Nope. Naruto smacked his lips. Now apologize. And if I refuse? I'll rearrange your face. Willow yanked Little Winter behind her. The dust pistol barked. Jacques fumbled to reload. You have my attention, now. Naruto blinked down at the hole in his shoulder. I hope it was what you wanted. It was not. The Spiders ran a surprisingly tight ship for a criminal organization. All in all, their so-called base wasn't much of one at all, more a multi-terrorist club that had been hollowed out, fashioned into a gambling parlor, then fused with some sort of musical theater besides. Its architects certainly knew what they were doing. Everything was a bright myriad of pastel colors, lively luscious green mingled with deep azure and a rich golden saffron. It seemed custom built to draw the eye and patrons besides. Even now it lay packed with bustling people, from the bar itself down to the betting tables themselves. Luck of the Mountains they called it. Not a bad name, really. There was certainly some irony to be had there. Sounds like you're praising them. I'm not, Naruto shot back. It's just a lot to take in. It certainly didn't help that Miss Malachite all but had him by the hand and she was not letting go. Excuse the mess. Miranda favored him with a wry look as she led them through a throng of bettors. We're doing a bit of renovation. This is renovation. Quite. A bright eye flashed over her shoulder. Just wait until we put in the 6th floor. Kurama choked. Ambitious little human. What else could one possibly say to such an audacious statement? Buthan and Yang safely squirreled away in one of Miranda's apartments, under the watchful eye of no less than 3 heavily armed shadow clones. Naruto felt he could at least breathe, even if only a little. Nothing would get past those 3. Likewise, he'd left a similar detachment with Raven, just in case Malachite went back on her word. If that made her so-called doctor nervous, then too bloody bad for them. They would treat her while his doppelgangers looked on her not at all. They didn't like it. Tough. Something to say. Naruto had many things to say. Instead he sank his teeth into his tongue until it hurt and stalked after her. 2 favors, she'd said. 2, and not 1 more. Raven would be tended to. Depending on the nature of said treatment, he might be paying this place another visit with Kurama. This Malachite must have seen the anger in his eyes, too, because she tittered softly. You really do wear your heart on your sleeve. She concealed a smile behind her fan. It makes you so easy to read. Easy, was he? In a fit of pique, he channeled chakra to his eyes and let them flash a vivid red. Won't be doing much reading if you're 6 feet under. An empty threat. He wasn't about to kill anyone, even her. Without just cause, but she didn't know that. A bit of color drained from her face, and he knew his words had hit home. To be fair, she recovered quickly, but he'd seen the slip. She wasn't as in control as she pretended to be. Good to know. He didn't much like the idea of intimidating someone, but if that was what it took. His eye caught on a horned man near one of the tables, and his frown deepened. That was certainly an impressive club there on his back. Is that a huntsman? Of course it is. Miranda tugged him toward the staircase. Huntsmen come here all the time. They're our best customers. Well, she flashed him a wink as they took the steps 2 at a time. Ito over there certainly is. You'd like him, I think. Tempting, but I'll pass. Her fingers tightened in his. Have it your own way. In short order, Miss Malachite led him to a balcony overlooking the 3rd floor. Her lips pursed as she stopped just shy of the next railing, pressing her back against it instead. It did interesting things to her chest. Naruto kept his eyes on her face, refusing to give her another weapon in her arsenal. Dear Fox, whatever is the matter with you? She crossed one arm beneath her bosom, accentuating the effect even further. Have I done something to upset you? Her head tilted just so, golden ringlets concealing her right eye. Do you think I'm trying to strong-arm you? The silence proved telling. You do, don't you? Miranda sighed into it. Fair enough. Tell me, have you ever heard of the Shion clan? What was this, more bait? Was she trying to distract him? In the end, he shrugged. No. Doesn't ring a bell. Perhaps the Red Axe gang rings a bell. Nasty bunch, that lot. A rare frown dimpled her lovely face. Little more than a band of thugs. So uncivilized. Is there a point to this? Naruto quirked a brow even as he bit down on an ember of anger. Are you trying to convince me, or yourself? The point is this. Malachite leaned in and gave his cheek a light pat. We aren't like them. Her smile didn't fade, even when he shook her off. There is an order to what me and my girls do. A system, if you will. Mistral needs us. She turned her back on him to face the balcony and the teeming masses below. Why, I dare say she can't function without us. An arm swept toward the gathering, dangling over them all as a sly spider miter web. We don't deal in drugs, we keep men like 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 one of the streets, and not a one of the girls under our protections goes hungry. And no, because I can feel that sulky look on your face, they don't sell themselves to make ends meet. I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Legitimacy? Malachite whirled to face him, skirt swirling at her feet. When I was a girl, I was terrified of spiders. Gave me the heebie-jeebies. She wriggled her fingers at him. But as I grew older, I realized the world needs spiders. I just made the spiders work for me. Look around you, she nudged him forward. This place was a whorehouse before I took over, Mistral, a city filled with poverty and crime, a place where someone would sooner shank you as smile at you. I made order from this mess. Through disorder. He retorted. Precisely, darling. Her smile was nothing short of smug. Remove me and you'd have worse than anarchy, you'd create a power vacuum. The next spider might not be so friendly to you. And unlike a certain cowardly lion you may meet, I will never, ever lie to you. Kurama huffed. Bold words. But she hasn't fibbed yet. From the moment I met you, I knew you could every single one of us with both hands tied behind your back. When he didn't deny it, her cheeks dimpled again. I meant what I said earlier. I want to be your friend. Not your boss, not your overlord, and certainly not your minder. I suspect you wouldn't listen to me in any case. Not without a little incentive at any rate. His eyes widened. Don't you dare. What, threaten those girls of yours? She scoffed and waved a hand at him. Perish the thought. You'd tear my head off before I finished giving the order. Naruto winced a little at that. Did they really think he was a murderer? Besides, Miranda sashayed past, that pretty little village girl of yours isn't exactly a bed of roses herself. Roses? Something stilled in his soul. What's that supposed to mean? The wicked look flashed over her shoulder. Ask her sometime. Tell you what, Miss Malachite pivoted, her lean face alight with delight. As a token of our friendship, I'll expend one of those favors right now. Did you hear? There's a big shot visiting Haven. Naruto blinked once. And? It's a Schnee. Right. You have no idea who that is, do you? Regardless, he's here with his family. He didn't challenge her, so she took that as an excuse to continue. He owes us a debt. We helped him further SDC interests here in Mistral in return for a cut of the profits. He never paid up. I already told you, his brow turned stormy. I'm not a loan shark. I'm not about to beat up an innocent man. Innocent? She ran a hand over his arm. Trust me. When you see him, you'll understand. Naruto batted it away, feeling filthy. You say tat, but how do I know I can trust you? Just tell him I'd like to invite him for a spot of tea. You'll see how he reacts. In the end, she told him where to find Jacques Schnee. It proved to be something of an eye-opening experience. .0.0.0. Anne wondered if she was going mad. Her life had been so simple once. If she disliked someone, she killed them. If she wanted something, she took it. Now here she was, pseudo-hostage to one of the most menacing families in Mistral. How the mighty had fallen. In the past, she could have torn through this lot like so much wheat from chaff. With her semblance, she could have ripped Malachite's head from her shoulders and mounted it on a spike for all to see. But that life was behind her. And had seen where that road led and given it up. She wasn't that person anymore. She liked to believe she was a better person for it. She had to. Even if she wanted to be otherwise again, she hadn't fought for the last 3 years. Her skills, one so sharp and keen, had rusted away in Kuroyuri. She was powerless, shackled to fate. By the gods, she hated this feeling. She leaned back and rocked Yang a little in her arms. What do you think, dear? We'll get out of this, won't we? The babe furrowed her brow, looking at her. And then. Ma. Anne went terribly still. Oh, dear. .0.0.0. Willow loathed business trips. But really, what choice did she have? If it weren't one thing or another, it was these infernal things. She'd made her bed, filthy sheets and all. Now she had to lie in it. Everything she'd done, she did for the Schnee family name. Jacques had taken her father's failing company and made it a juggernaut to be reckoned with, an unstoppable force nearly everyone bowed to. Bastard would drag her around when she was pregnant. These days he enjoyed parading her around like the trophy wife she'd become. A shadow of her former self, a true and constant reminder of the once mighty woman she had been, a proverbial slap in the face. That he'd brought her all to some infamous restaurant in Mistral spoke much of the current tone of their marriage. He seemed to grow colder with each passing month these days. I used to be someone. Yes, I was better than this. The thought burned in her belly like the alcohol she hadn't had in months. Why? Why did I choose this? She glared at her feet as she listened to him prattle on and on, making yet more of his false promises to another potential business partner. Why did I ever allow this? She wasn't quite broken. Not yet. While she couldn't drink at the moment, she could take pleasure in other, happier aspects of her life. Mother. A tiny hand tugged at her dress. Why are you frowning? Willow turned weary eyes to the sole light in her life. It's nothing, dear. Mommy's just tired. Yes, tired. Of so many things. Her little Winter hummed. Is Weiss alright? A faint kick hit out at Willow's belly. Yes, I believe she is. Only 5 years old and already, her girl really was too clever by half. She'd make a fine big sister and would be soon. Only 1 more month now. Willow gingerly touched a hand to the swell of her belly. Another kick was quick to follow the first. It drew a smile to her lips, tiny enough that Jacques couldn't see it. Weiss. I hope you're born into a peaceful world. So she was quite surprised when someone rounded the corner. She had time enough to take in bright blue eyes, whiskered cheeks, and striking blonde hair, all wrapped up in a simple blue-on-white jacket with a matching pair of breeches. Then he was upon them, all but ignoring the clamor he'd made. He didn't so much walk as he did stalk. Everyone noticed. So did she. Jacques Schnee. Her husband bridled. Who are? Sorry about this, the stranger dimpled, but you've been invited to tea. With whom? This Malachite. Came the reply. She says you know her. I'm just the messenger. His eyes flitted to hers. Narrowed. Oh. He blinked, noticing the swell of her belly, seeing Winter huddle behind her back. You're pregnant. Congratulations. He sounded sincere about it, too. I'm really sorry for bothering you. I'll be out of your hair in just a minute. Jacques finally found his voice. Did you say Malachite? Yup. The blonde smacked his lips. Really sorry to impose on you, but if you could come with me. Willow watched all the color drain from her husband's face, his already pale visage becoming positively pallid now. It was a curious thing indeed. His business partners made their excuses and departed all too hastily. She wondered why. Who was Miss Malachite? And why was poor Jacques sweating bullets? A frown married her face. Oh, dear. Whatever had he gotten mixed up in this time? Jacques, she began slowly, just give him whatever he wants and be done with it. Never. He cried. I will not be intimidated by some thug. Winter whimpered a little, a tiny, reedy sound. You're scaring our daughter. His hand cracked toward her face. Silence, woman. It never landed. Willow dared to creak an eye open. Much to her alarm, stranger stood between them, gripping her husband's arm in hand. The husband shouldn't treat his wife like that. Firm fingers tightened around his wrist. Apologize. Jacques bridled like a struck pig. How dare you? Do you have any idea who I am? Nope. The whiskered warrior smacked his lips. Now apologize. Jacques turned an ugly shade of puce. And if I refuse? I'll rearrange your face. And his fist blurred. Oops. Jacques is in for it now, maybe he'll escape. Cough, not a chance, cough. Remember. Ember's rule. If folks don't like this, it'll be deleted and consigned to the plot bin. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. That's no joke. I can't write without feedback. Guess that makes me weak TT. So in the immortal words of Atlas. Review would you kindly? And enjoy the previews. Potential ones at that. Previews. Willow felt a faint discomfort. Her dress was damp. She looked down. Frowned. Oh no. Oh. She murmured softly. I believe my water just broke. Naruto slapped a palm to his face. I know, girl. Miranda smiled. A deal's a deal. You're free to go. Are you sure I can't convince you to stay? Her hand trailed the length of his arm. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. The silence must have proved telling because she dared to barrel on. You need lean resources. You have a baby girl to provide for. We could do that for you. At what cost? No cost at all, darling. Though I wouldn't say no to a little affection. I've been so kind to you and you've been so cold. Don't bother, kid. He swatted a hand away from his pocket. No wallet to steal. Naruto tugged him upright, still gripping his wrist. Now, what am I gonna do with you? Roman gulped. Ah, shit. Take the girl. No. And smiled. It was not a nice smile. You won't be taking anyone. What can you possibly do? Are you going to attack me? With that kitchen knife? Ha. I tried being nice. But if this is where it leads me, if you're going to come after that baby girl. Her would-be attacker looked down, startled to find that simple knife thrust through their chest. A black mark bloomed over the wound. It kept spreading. Creeping over them like a disease. Pain raced and hot on its heels, 1,000 fire ants crawling beneath their flesh. All the while those shadow bands constricted, creeping up their throat, choking them. What have you done? Oh, good. Ren's mother hummed softly. Seems my semblance works just fine after all these years. She touched a hand to her cheek as they crumpled to her knees. And here I was worried I'd lost my touch. Silly me, really. A hand dipped down, cupping their chin. Now then, I believe you owe me something. Their victim died screaming. Be wary of she who holds her words, for they are biting as a blizzard. Be wary when making deals with a sly spider. You're like to get tangled in their web. Beware the raven, for she is a flighty and often craven creature, prone to fits of madness. Beware the woman who once dipped her hands in blood, for they will never truly be clean again. But fear the fox above all. He's likely to trick you without you even realizing it, to win you to his side before you realize what's happening. Which is more dangerous, I wonder? Winter was a brave girl. She had to be. No, that wasn't quite right. She must be, not solely for her sake, nor Mama's, but for Weiss as well. Weiss, who was so close to being born. Weiss, who wouldn't have anyone want to protect her if she faltered here. Weiss, who would be alone in the world if she didn't do something, and soon. Because a scary smiling man had punched Papa out and taken him away. It didn't matter who he'd introduced himself as. Not to her. He was still scary. That was all he would ever be. Now her and Mama were being taken somewhere else. She didn't know where. All she knew was that she didn't like it, didn't like the people on these streets, didn't like their whispers, and she certainly didn't like the way the smiling man dragged Mama behind him by the hand. Winter wanted to go home. Everyone kept staring at them. This was a bad place, and she was so very afraid. But she needed to be brave. Because Mama was being strange. Mama was calm. Why was she smiling? She shouldn't be smiling. Will he live? Their guide, no. Captor. Kidnapper. Rolled his shoulders in a shrug as he guided them through another alley. Sure. Didn't hit him that hard. He'll have a concussion, but he should live probably. Winter squeaked. Probably. I'm sorry. A pitying blue eye flashed over his shoulder. She hated it. She didn't need his pity. Didn't want it. Look, people are flimsy in this world, alright. I thought he was a little stronger than he was. Really, I didn't mean to crack his skull. Here. He snatched up an apple from a nearby vendor and left a little lean behind. Have something to eat. Winter complied, if only to hide her fear behind the juicy fruit. This world. Just forget I said anything. He'll be fine. Pity. Willow hummed at that. I supposed it would be too much to ask you to finish what you started. Winter's head whipped toward her mother. Mama. There, dear. Don't worry your pretty little head. A pale hand patted her hair. The grown-ups are talking. And really, her gaze flitted back to the smiling man, it's not killing. Just pest control. Eat your apple. Winter complied, but she didn't stop listening. Not for a moment. The scary smiling man paused to let a bit of foot traffic bustle by. As he did, his gaze met Willow's. He is a bit of pig, isn't he? Please. She huffed. Would be an insult to swine. My husband no, Jacques, is a rodent. Winter's mind began to spin, even as she munched on her treat. Why were they calling Papa an animal? All this byplay was going right over her head. She was so very confused. Sure, maybe Papa wasn't the best Papa, but he was still well, Papa. Why was Mama being so nice to the man who had taken him away? Sensing her gaze, the blonde looked her way. Winter yelped and shied behind her mother. Why are you being so nice to him? Because he's been a perfect gentleman thus far, dear. Winter clung to her grudge like the child she was. He punched Papa. So he did. Mother tilted her head, voice taking on a rare tone she seldom heard these days. Do you know why? Winter wrinkled her nose, not quite comprehending. Because he's a bad man? The smiling man squawked in protest. Hey. No, Mama shushed her. Because your father didn't pay his debts. Let this be a lesson to you, dear. Always keep your word. Naruto shrugged. She's not wrong, you know. Ahead of them, the traffic bustled on. The streets were theirs once more. Naruto pulled on ahead, tugging Willow with him. Winter fell into a sulk and let herself be led along. Her thoughts grew dark. Mama had been fooled. She must be. If no one would take action then she would. She had. She must. One way or another. She would free her family from this man. Just needed an opportunity. Who knew what devious thoughts he was thinking? No doubt he was plotting, the fiend. .0.0.0. Errors had been made. Much errors. Many errors. Every single error. Naruto made them all. For the life of him, he couldn't understand why he'd done what he did. In his mind, punching Jacques upside the head seemed all well and good at the time. Justified, even. The man had struck his pregnant wife right in front of him. A smack was the least he deserved. Maybe he'd hit him a little too hard, sure. He owned that. Really, he'd meant well. Things just got out of hand. Kurama stifled a groan behind one tail. That's putting it mildly. Boy. He flicked a crass thought at him. I didn't see you with any ideas. To be fair, you looked to have things well in hand at the time. I thought you had it. How's this well in hand? I've got 2 hostages and no idea what to do with them. The kid's glaring at me for crying out loud. The wait paused followed. Well, you could always. No. I'm not keeping them. Naruto cast a glance over his shoulder, keenly aware of the footsteps trudging after him. Willow's smile was positively placid. Not so Winter. She glared bale daggers at him. An icy glyph whirled in her little fingers. Errors had definitely been made. Why did he take the family? He didn't know. Perhaps it was panic on his part that explained what followed. Maybe it was instinct. He didn't know. In hindsight it seemed like such a good idea at the time. No witnesses to his dirty deed, no one to report is justified. Assault on one Jacques Schnee. Yet now that he had them, he didn't know what to do with them. He could only keep walking and pray he'd make it to safety before someone realized what was happening. The clever bit of speed and a few shadow clones had allowed them to avoid detection thus far, but it couldn't last. There were too many eyes in Mistral. Throwing a sack over Jacques' head may have helped in the long run, ferrying the man off to Miranda via shadow clone, even more so, but they were moving on borrowed time. Even now there was a part of him that wanted nothing more than to order said clone to throw the weasel in the gutter and be done with it. What kind of rat bastard abused their wife in front of their daughter? The kind that needs to die. Kurama, we've been over this. No. 1,000 times no. He grit his teeth as he marched forward. We're not murdering a man just because you dislike him. The fox scoffed. Even if he deserves it. Even then. Especially then. We'd be no better than Madara. I applaud your morals, but sometimes the only good enemy is a dead enemy. A molar cracked in the back of his jaw. Still the fact remained. Willow and Winter were too well known. They would be noticed sooner or later. No, scratch that. They'd definitely been noticed. Worse, the former wouldn't let go of his hand or cease looking at him as he tugged her along. A spark had come back into her eyes, as if he'd reignited something in her, breathed life back into the embers of a long-dead flame. He wasn't sure he liked the look of it. This wasn't fear. Naruto knew fear. He'd tasted it before. This was something else. Little Winter, though. Fear. All of it. She radiated terror, even as she tried to put on a brave face. When he looked back at her overlong, she tore her gaze away. Hey Kurama. Willow yawned. Are we the bad guys here? Suppose that might be true from a certain point of view. A crimson eye creaked open in the depths of his mind. You all but thrashed a man in full view of his family. Now you've kidnapped said family and from their view, sent him off to parts unknown. Is it any wonder you've startled the? He hit his pregnant wife. Not sorry. I don't expect you to be, brat. The faintest note of anger drawled through his thoughts. Just telling you how it is, duck. After all they'd been through, his body obeyed without hesitation. He ripped his hand from Willow's and spun. Just as well, because a tiny glyph whistled over his head. Denied its target, it caromed off a wall to bury itself in the street at his feet. Boy. He flicked a glance at the responsible party, a seething Winter. What was that for? Her gaze was nothing short of surly. Let us go. We don't want to go with you. Winter. Willow's rebuke beat him to the punch. Stop that at once. Her eyes watered, glistening with unshed tears. But. No buts. He's been nothing but civil to us. Would you rather be taken away like Jacques? It was enough to make the girl shrink in on herself. Winter wilted and shook her head with a tiny no. Sending her hair swaying. Willow tugged at his hand, drawing him back to the present. Time to bite the bullet there. Look, he began, you can't tell anyone about this. Once this is over, you can go on your merry way. And what then? Her voice went cold. You'd send us back to Jacques. Return us to him like some parcel. Naruto winced. Yup, he definitely stirred something in her. It was becoming painfully clear that she would not go quietly into that good night. Perhaps he'd given her a taste of freedom, of what her life was before all this madness. Before she'd been beaten down and ruined. I won't go back with him. Her voice peaked in distress. I refuse. Do you have any idea what it's like living under his thumb, feeling small, powerless? Kurama settled into to watch. Here we go. Naruto flung up his arms into the air. What'd you want me to do? Help us? She grabbed at his jacket, pulling him close. Protect us. He wanted to. He really did. Even after all he'd been through, he still lived to help people. But how to even go about it? He was already living off Malachite's charity, taking in Willow and Winter might well make things far worse on that front. More than that, he could feel Winter glaring pale daggers into his back. Look, he countered, I'm already looking after one kid and her mother. I'm barely making ends meet as it is. Here at last, his words gave her pause. But only for a moment. I can pay you. The blonde brow quirked. Willow, say what now? You said you lacked for funds, yes. Her smile was brittle, desperate, the last gasp of a woman who'd gone too long without hope. Help me, help us, and the Schnee coffers will be open to you. When he didn't respond at once, that smile crumpled. Please. If you send me back to him nothing will change. I'd sooner die than. The soft gasp brought him up short. She slumped and leaning against a nearby wall. One hand rested against her belly. Winter gasped. Naruto hissed out a breath. You have got to be kidding me. No way my luck is that bad. I'm sorry, Willow's smile was decidedly strained and yet oddly smug. I think all this excitement might have proven a bit too much for me. Naruto blinked. Once. Twice. Thrice now. Wanna run that by me again? I said, she murmured softly. My water just broke. Of course it did. Why the hell not? He slapped a palm to his face. I know a girl. .0.0.0. Yang wouldn't stop crying. It began as a whimper after her nap and escalated slowly but surely. It wasn't even a particularly loud cry, not at first, merely the bawling of a babe who craved comfort. Almost as if she were afraid. Like she'd been spooked. But by what? When those pleas went ignored over long, those whimpers became a wail. Louder and louder they grew, until it was all Anne could hear. Geez, what's gotten into 𝐤𝐢? She just couldn't ascertain the cause. Yang had been fed, taken a long nap, had her diaper changed, and she didn't need to be burped. She'd simply woken up and started squalling. There. She soothed, rocking her to and fro with gentle care. Realization dawned. You're alright. You miss your papa, don't you? Mistakes were made. Yang wailed even louder. Hey. It's alright. It was not alright. Not at all. How could someone so small have such a healthy pair of lungs? Too healthy, some might say. Healthy enough to make her eyes glow, and she was sure there was some secret at work there. And have the wind pick up when she cried. No way was that normal. Raven was of no help at all here. Malachite's men had brought her back after treatment, tucked her into bed, and told and well, demanded really that she wasn't to let her out no matter what. They'd even left a pager in case of emergencies. Apparently mob doctors were still doctors. Wah. Alright. Geez, you take after your parents far too much. Anne knew she wasn't a very good parent. There was a small part of her that wondered if she would ever make a good mother someday. But she was nothing if not determined. She was going to try, blasted, come hell or high water. Now if she could just calm little Yang down. "If her here." Raven's weak voice called from the bedroom. "You gotta sing to her when she's like this." Anne perked up, somewhat startled to hear the bandit queen. "Wait, you're awake? Since when?" She slipped in and found her just like that, good-eye glowering daggers at her. "Since now," she rasped, holding out an arm. "𝐾𝐸𝐻𝐸, give her here." Reluctantly, Anne complied with her wishes. "Here, you calm her like this." Anne quieted the moment she was in Raven's arms. Well, arm, really. The ruined stub she had didn't really count. Still, the wounded woman cradled her daughter against one breast and began to hum softly. For all her prickliness, her voice was the sweetest of music. Despite that, Anne couldn't help but wince. Was she really cut out for this? "And where do you think you're going?" Raven's glare pinned her when she made to leave. "You sing, too." "What, me? Do you see anyone else here? You're responsible for this runt." The ghost of a smile touched Anne's lips. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. .0.0.0. Miranda Malachite wasn't happy to see him. Naruto took one look at her and knew it at a glance, the subtle frown marring her lips, the slight twitch of her right eye, the way she stalked just a little too quickly round her desk to meet him halfway into her office. Underlings scurried out of her way and out the door, none daring to meet her eyes. To her credit, she waited until they vacated her office. The moment they did, she closed it, locked behind her, and whirled to face him. Do you not know the meaning of subtlety? It was as close to a rebuke as he'd get from her, only because he knew she wouldn't dare provoke him. "You've made quite the mess for me." Naruto fought down a sigh. He did not succeed. "I tried to be civil. He forced my hand." "Oh yes," she clicked her tongue, "the Schnee forced you to slap the daylights out of him, did he?" Naruto scowled. He hit his wife, he was about to beat her for talking back. "Would you rather I ignore that? She's got spirit. And now you've thrust said wife at one of my doctors." Despairing eyes sought the ceiling. "She's gone into labor, for crying out loud. You've brought far too much attention down on us." Naruto didn't budge. "Be that way, fine." She whirled away, pinching the bridge of her nose. "I get it, I do. Don't worry. I'll make this go away. It'll cost you another favor, though." Another one. A pearl of anger coalesced in his chest. "No. No." Her lips pursed into a thin line. "I don't think you realize just how much work you've thrust at me." She thrust an open palm at him, 5 fingers splayed. "I have witnesses to silence, officials to bribe, a headmaster to place, footage to erase, and a Schnee to intimidate. Their pockets run deep, and their grudges deeper. All because you couldn't control yourself." When he didn't answer, Miranda stalked back to her desk. "We can't hold him forever. Hell, our intention was never to kidnap him in the first place." Her eyes sought his, and for once, he was the one to wince. "Just to remind him of his obligations. Put pressure on him. We tried that, but he clearly remembers you. He's not happy, let me tell you. So you're going to let him go?" She planted one hand on her hip. "Unless you want Atlas death squads banging down our door." Unbidden, Naruto thought of Willow's pitiful expression. Nothing will change. Damn it. Some of his intent must have shown through, because Miranda perked up. Her smile, once pensive, became sly. She circled back around the desk again. Tilted her head just so. Her gaze was far too keen for his liking. With a single glance, she read him like a book. "I know that look." Her fingers stroked his arm, dancing across the bicep there. "You're up to something. Care to fill a gall in?" Not a chance. Anything he told her would probably be used against him. "I want to talk with Jacques." She only shrugged. "It's your funeral, dear. The Schnees are powerful." He drew himself up to his full towering height. "So am I. Hope you're a good actor, then. You'll need a miracle to pull this off." A rare thought struck him. He ran with it all the way home. "I've fought a fair number of villains in my day. .0.0.0. Rise and shine, Jacques." But those 5 fateful words, a vicious roundhouse rocked Jacques' world. Pain hauled him out of restless slumber and snapped him back to reality. He tasted blood in his mouth, found a gap where one of his front teeth had been, and fought down a snarl. Fury sparked within him. How dare he? "The tooth." He slurred, blinking the spots out of his eyes. "You cost me a tooth. I'll have your hide for this." "No," a low voice crooned, "I don't think you will." The shadows parted and someone stepped forth. It was that rogue from before, the filthy reprobate that dared to lay a hand on him. He tried to rise and meet him, only to find himself shackled to a chair. Heavy chains bound his limbs, all but holding him in place. In vain he cast a glance about at his surroundings, searching for something, anything that might save him. He found nothing. For the building was vast, its walls wide, its ceiling higher still. Unused machinery lined the walls, framed by stacks of unmarked crates and other bits and baubles he couldn't comprehend. All of it looked long abandoned. Forgotten. Straining his ears availed him naught. He heard only the faint sounds of the sea. Water. Were they near the docks, then? This boded poorly. You just couldn't play along, could you? His captor took a seat, spun it around so that the back was facing him, and plunked down into it, legs splayed on either side. You just had to make things difficult. I am so tired of people like you. Jacques bridled with an indignant sputter. Now see here. I am talking. Clenched knuckles plowed into his face, taking yet another tooth. And I'm not listening. A snarl tore his words away. Jacques rocked back in his chair, eyes wide. You know, it's funny. His captor rumbled. Some people say a good deed never goes unpunished. Slim shoulders rolled in a shrug. Never really believed it myself. I like doing good deeds. It's what I do, you know. He hung his head with a sigh. But I'm tired. From the moment I landed in this world, I've stumbled from conflict to another. And all the while, the sound of grinding teeth filled the air. People keep trying to take advantage of me. I save a mother. Bam. Gotta raise her kid. Try to get her healed. Roped into helping a sneaky spider. And when I stop you. The golden hand caught him by the chin, fingers biting painfully against his cheeks. Well. You know the rest. You can't keep me here. I'll have your head. Oh. There has been just one person who gave their help freely. He could feel the bruises beginning to form as the blonde squeezed his face. And now I find out she probably has secrets of her own. A tinny laugh left his lips, weary and hollow. I just don't understand it. Am I cursed? Going mad? Both. I want to keep my word, you know. To do what I set out to do. Jacques whimpered. So believe me when I say, those clawed fingers turned his head aside, I'm trying to be normal. So here's what you're going to do. First. You'll pay Malachite what you owe her. I do not consort with criminals, Bwerg. A harsh slap struck his teeth, taking another. I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Naruto's smile was pure venom. Second, you'll get down on your knees and beg your wife for forgiveness. Another slap. And third, you will never, ever, lay hands on anyone again. Pain sparked a rage deep within Jacques, kindling his courage. The businessman sneered. Bravado. Cheap fear tactics. That was all this was. He was invincible. Untouchable. The world needed dust, and by definition, it needed the SDC. Him. One could not exist without the other. Any threats he leveled at him would be moot once the forces of Atlas came for him. You can't force me to do anything. He lifted his chin in surly defiance. I'll see you ruined for this. The blonde brow rose. I haven't done anything wrong. Haven't you? Now it was his turn to sneer. You struck me in broad daylight, kidnapped my family, then spirited them away to parts unknown. Is that not a crime? And you beat your wife. The retort proved swift. Have I? An ugly smile was his reward. Will she agree with that, I wonder? Speak to her again. I believe her story will change once she realizes the ramifications of her actions. No response. Good. It was his turn to talk now, to remind this fool of his place. Word will get out. I'll see to that. And once it does, you'll never know peace. I'll destroy everyone and everything you love. He leaned forward in his chair, chains rattling behind him. It doesn't matter if you're innocent. I'll make a monster of you. Silence reigned supreme. And then. Ha. He wasn't prepared for the laughter. No demented cackle was this, no insane shriek of the damned or condemned. It was a soft laugh, all things considered, the rasp of a man who had been pushed too far at last. An alarm went off in the back of his head as said captor rose slowly from his chair. Yes, you will. He favored him with a pitying look. Maybe you're right, Kurama. Right. I understand now. Kurama. Jacques sputtered. What in blazes is a Kurama? Why are you telling me all this? Because, and here at last his captor smiled, I know you won't tell anyone. But I loathe you. Naruto's head bobbed. I know. Then this is nonsense. He spat in his face. You have no power over me. You're right. Much to his chagrin, the blonde actually deigned to pat his head. I don't. Blue eyes blazed red. But he does. Something shifted in that moment, his whiskers becoming darker, voice deeper. Physically he didn't change. His presence, however, did. An unseen weight filled the air, choking the very life from his lungs. Something far too old, too ancient, looked at him through those awfully scarlet red slits. He wasn't talking to this Naruto, no anymore. He was speaking to something worse. Far worse. The clawed hand slammed down on his shoulder and twisted, bending his arm out of place. Bone broke like so much kindling. Jacques tried to speak. All that emerged was a keening whine. You come to Murstel again, the berserk blonde leaned forward, fangs snapping in his face. In fact, you go anywhere in this world, preying on innocent people like your wife, and you won't have to worry about what the brat does. His mouth curled in a smile, old, ancient, and unbelievably cruel. Because I will find you, and when I do, I will eat both of your arms and then both of your legs. The clawed finger jabbed him just below the nose, hooking itself in one nostril. And then I will eat your face right off your head. Do you understand? He would too. Jacques saw it in his eyes. Dread choked all thought. No. Yes. Came the answering purr. So, you will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Too many teeth. That smile had far too many teeth. Rolling down the street, unable to even scream. I hear it's an awful way to live. Do you feel me? One could threaten a man, not a monster. Jacques took one look at those vicious lips and knew this would be his fate if he denied. Wealth, fame, power. None of it meant anything in the face of a monstrosity that was prepared to eat you if you offended it. He'd made a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake, and it was too late to take it back. Please. Red eyes narrowed upon him, windows of raging wrath. On second thought. The flicker of gold was the only warning the Schnee received, then his world exploded. One moment he looked upon a man. In the next, a giant golden fox took its place. Large didn't even begin to define it, its sheer bulk burst through the ceiling, spraying debris in every direction. It towered over him, looming large in the warehouse, livid eyes glaring into his. Hot, fetid breath blasted him in the face. 9 tails of ethereal light lashed at the earth, carving great furrows in the floor. Jacques whimpered. A faint dampness registered against his leg. He'd soiled himself. If it had been terrifying before, then this was sheer horror, pure and primal. It grinned at him then, the sneer a predator might direct toward its cornered prey. The beast's maw opened, brimming with teeth as large as he was tall. And in that fleeting instant, that moment before his mind broke, Jacques knew his fate. I've blundered. That last tiny part of his sanity bleated. This is it, then. I'm dead. Almighty jaws snapped down on his body, annihilating him, chair and all. His life ended in an instant. No evidence was left behind. None. And from that moment, that slip, that lapse of control. Nothing would be the same. Malachite was waiting for Naruto when he finally slipped out the door. She leaned past him. Took one look at the ruined room. Paled. What have you done? An. Stopped holding back, that's what he did. Venom references are venom references. Demons run when a good man goes to war. Jacques should have remembered that. Naruto has, at last, been pushed too far. And Kurama with him. Something like this was bound to happen sooner or later. As ever, the Ember's rule persists. If folks don't like this, poof. Gone. To the void it goes. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. Really, they do. That's no joke. I don't have days off anymore, 2 jobs will do that to you, and I'm working myself to the bone. So by all means, speak up. Raise your voice. Make yourself heard. Your reviews matter. That's no joke. I can't write without feedback. Guess that makes me weak. So in the immortal words of Atlas. Review would you kindly? And enjoy the previews. Potential ones at that. Previews. Surely there was another way. Don't doubt yourself now. It needed to be done. Kurama snapped. No body. No evidence. Only Malachite knows. Winter scowled at him. You are not my father. No, I am not. But I will tan your hide if you keep abusing my hospitality. Naruto made way for her without another word. Go on. Winter scooted forward and peered over her mother's arms. She saw a tiny bundle of pink nestled against Willow's bosom and swaddling blue bloth. Hello Weiss. Ah. Yang flailed pudgy little arms at him. Up. Twins. He plunked down into the seat. Have a drink, they said. You'll be fine, they said. When I get my hands on her I will. Summer trailed off. The tribe was nowhere to be seen. Only ashes and bones remained. There was a broken crib among them. She fell to her knees. Be wary of she who holds her words, for they are biting as a blizzard. Be wary when making deals with a sly spider. You're like to get tangled in their web. Beware the raven, for she is a flighty and often craven creature, prone to fits of madness. Beware the woman who once dipped her hands in blood, for they will never truly be clean again. But fear the fox above all. He's likely to trick you without you even realizing it, to win you to his side before you realize what's happening. Which is more dangerous, I wonder. The door burst open. There was neither word nor warning for what came next. One moment they were at peace, in the next. Men stormed in. The great big brute led them. Raven cursed and forced herself up. Take the girl. No. And smiled. It was not a nice smile. You won't be taking anyone. What can you possibly do? Are you going to attack me? With that kitchen knife? I tried being nice. But if this is where it leads me, if you're going to come after that baby girl. Her would-be attacker looked down, startled to find that simple knife thrust through their chest. A black mark bloomed over the wound. It kept spreading. Creeping over them like a disease. Pain raced and hot on its heels, 1,000 fire ants crawling beneath their flesh. All the while those shadow bands constricted, creeping up their throat, choking them. What have you done? Oh, good. Ren's mother hummed softly. Seems my semblance works just fine after all these years. She touched a hand to her cheek as they crumpled to her knees. And here I was worried I'd lost my touch. Silly me, really. A hand dipped down, cupping their chin. Now then, I believe you owe me something. Their victim died screaming. I hope you guys liked the story. If you did, click on any of the videos which are popping on the screen right now. I promise you'll love them too. If you like my videos you can like and subscribe too. I'll see you on another amazing What If video guys. Love you all, peace.